So real estate can be a very reactional business because there's multiple transactions going on. And I know Buffini uses this term, but sometimes real estates can be like bumblebees, just going from one flower to the next. And they have no direction, no sense of purpose. They're just reacting, putting out fires. How do you set and manage your goals as a realtor or just general as an entrepreneur?
Yep. I've always been a goal setter, but I set them like an amateur for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I would just set them, I'd set as many as I can, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
A few years I adopted the GPS. I love the GPS.
Yeah.
Right? G for goals, P for priorities, S for strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So one main goal, then three priorities. Yeah. Each priority has 5 strategies to hit the priority, to hit the goal. Mm-hmm. Love that. Right? When I learned that 3 years ago, I adopted it right away. Mm-hmm. So now I have it for not just the big goals, but I have one GPS, one set of goals, strategies, priorities for my health. I have a GPS for my business.
Yeah.
I have a GPS for this. GPS, I think it's the best way to do it. I love
agree.
it because you set goals. Anybody can just set a goal. Oh, I want to get this. I want to make this. I want to. But how are you going to hit that goal? That's the key.
Yeah.
So the GPS allows you to articulate and say, all right, this is my goal. But now what are the top 3 priorities I need to do to hit that goal? Great. Here's the priorities. Makes sense. Then give me 5 strategies to hit each priority.
Yeah.
That to me that was a game changer for me.
Yeah. What I love about that is sometimes I think people, as a realtor, I'll stick to real estate. When you're setting goals, sometimes you can try to think of it like everything's going to work out. I'm going to do a 5-year plan, right? And you set these big, huge goals, and then your life changes. You go in a different direction in the area you're marketing, or you become a seller's agent rather than a buyer's agent. I like using the GPS because you can constantly revisit it. I only do a GPS for a quarter. Obviously, I have some sort of vision of what I think my business is going to look like in 5 years, but I look at my GPS every single quarter, and then I look at the 3 priorities. Obviously, most of the time the goal's always the same. Do X amount in transactions or volume. And then you can look at it and say, okay, well, I've prioritized this for the last 3 months. Mm-hmm. It hasn't really served me. Right. So I need to switch out one of those priorities. Right. And then, like you said, get down to the nitty gritty. And then how am I going to get there? Right. I think that's where most people make the mistake, is because they say, oh, this is my goal. Here's my priorities. And then they forget about the how do you get there part. Yeah. And if you are someone that struggles with goals, I think just starting off with the basic and just set goals for the week. So what habits can you implement that will help you get towards your goal just for this week?
Right.
And once you start getting better at doing that, you can even start just for the day. But once you start getting better at actually, coming up with the goals and then reaching them, then go over to a month, then go to 3 months. If you want to do more than a year, then fine, go for more than a year.
Yeah.
Me personally, I've always found that if I go over a quarter, goals change, life changes, and something happens. Right. So I like sticking to that time.
However, it is fun to write out those 5 and 10-year goals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Have you ever done that when you write a letter to yourself? 10 years
I don't do
ago?
the letter writing thing, but I definitely set the goals. 5 years, 10 years. I find that fun.
Yeah, I know some
weird,
people.
But
some people do that, and then they get the letter like 5 years later, and they're like, "Man, what the hell was I talking about?"
The setting achievable goals, I am a big fan of that. Like time blocking was always a struggle for me. Like actually time blocking, so I would set 5-minute time blocks.
Yeah.
Right. We all want to set a 3-hour lead gen time block. For me, that was never attainable. But I'd set a 15-minute time block every morning, right? And that's how I would kind of get good at hitting goals, right? Setting them and hitting them and building that habit of hitting goals, just making them a little smaller.
Yeah, and another tip for when you're doing the GPS and you're picking out your strategies, try to make them daily habits. Because if you don't do them for a day, you can easily pick it back up.
Yeah.
Like, some people when they're writing out goals, they get on this, run of hitting them every single day, and then all of a sudden they don't do them for a week, and then they feel like they've got to rip everything up and go back to the drawing board. Whereas if you put those strategies as daily habits or as close to the daily habits as you can, it's easy to pick it back up if you drop off for a week. So
I recently read something that said something like this. It was a survey where they interviewed X amount of very successful people, X amount of, 100 millionaires, whatever it was. And they said the only thing they had in common, the only real thing they had in common was that they all set goals from an early age. That was like the only common thread this group had besides silly stuff. I told my kids that maybe 1,000 times since I read that article.